Today's episode centers on the story of Klara Mauerova, born in 1975 in Karen, Czechoslovakia. From a young age, Klara exhibited troubling behavior and disorders that shaped her life. Fascinated by the mystical world, she believed she was destined for great things, including fulfilling a divine mission alongside her younger sister, Katerina. Klara attended university but never managed to break free from her radical pseudo-religious obsessions. Over time, she became independent of her parents and moved in with a man with whom she had an active sexual life. She became pregnant and had 2 children, Andres and Jacob. As time went on, Klara developed a violent and erratic character. Her marriage ended, but she kept the children. Although eccentric, she was a dedicated mother who spent a great deal of time with her kids, yet still felt isolated. She then decided to invite her sister Katerina to live with her. While still attending university, Katerina met Barbara Skarlova, a 33-year-old woman with a rare disease that caused her to appear like a 12-year-old girl. Barbara often used this appearance to her advantage, evading legal troubles. Barbara also had an aggressive personality and had spent much of her life undergoing psychiatric treatment. Barbara's presence in Klara and Katerina's lives had a significant impact, altering their personalities and placing her in a position of influence. According to the psychiatrists who treated Barbara, she suffered from a mental disorder that caused her to alternate between being an adult woman and a child. This fragmented identity contributed to her manipulative behavior towards the sisters. Barbara was part of a cult known as the Graal movement, which had hundreds of followers in the UK and tens of thousands worldwide. Founded from writings collected between 1923 and 1938, the cult preached that humanity could achieve paradise through good deeds on earth. However, the group's teachings were anything but conventional, advocating the breakdown of social taboos, including incest, cannibalism, and murder. Barbara convinced Klara and Katerina to join the cult and follow its beliefs. The cult, led by a mysterious figure named Odudur, engaged in disturbing practices. Odudur communicated with followers solely through text messages sent to their phones, preaching that they were free from all societal constraints, including child abuse, sexual promiscuity, and slavery. Under her influence, Barbara began to manipulate Klara and Katerina even further, who followed her instructions blindly. Over time, the sisters adopted increasingly strange behaviors. Klara shaved her hair and eyebrows, wore a wig, and stopped bathing, while Katerina followed a similar lifestyle. Barbara, who alternated between being an adult and a child, became jealous of the attention Klara gave her children. Slowly, she began to incite the sisters against their kids, accusing them of misconduct and breaking things. In 2007, Barbara's influence reached its peak when she suggested the children be placed in an iron cage. The cage was commissioned to a local blacksmith, and the boys were locked in it in the house's basement. Klara and Katerina believed this was necessary to control their children and ensure they wouldn't misbehave. What followed was a horrific series of abuses. The children were burned with cigarettes, tied up, spanked, and shocked with electricity. They were kept naked, forced to sleep on the floor in their own urine and feces, and bathed with cold water once a week. The violence escalated until, at Barbara's request, Klara began to cut pieces of flesh from her children. The boys were fed to make them gain weight, and then Klara would use a knife to slice off pieces of their flesh while Barbara and Katerina devoured it in front of them. This abuse continued for months until a wireless surveillance camera was installed near the cage to monitor the children and their torture. However, what seemed like an attempt at surveillance became the key to ending this nightmare. A neighbor, who had installed cameras to monitor his baby's room, mistakenly intercepted the feed from the camera and recorded the horrifying images. Realizing the signal was coming from the house next door, he reported it to the police. On May 10, 2007, the police raided the house. Klara and Katerina tried to block the agents from entering but were quickly removed. Upon entering, the officers were confronted with a scene of unimaginable horror. The smell of urine and feces was unbearable, the floor was sticky, and the walls were stained with blood. One child was unconscious, while the other was in shock, suffering from severe wounds and parts of his body in a decaying state. In front of the cage stood a girl holding a teddy bear. The police initially believed she was Klara's adoptive daughter, named Annika, but soon realized it was Barbara disguised as a child. The two surviving children were taken to the hospital, but one of them did not survive. The other filed a lawsuit against his mother, recounting the horrors he had endured in the basement. Barbara, however, managed to escape to Norway, where she assumed a new identity. A Norwegian couple adopted her, but after a year, she was discovered and arrested. When the authorities revealed her true identity, her adoptive parents were shocked. Barbara was extradited to the Czech Republic, where she was tried alongside Klara and Katerina. The case became known as one of the most horrific child abuse cases in Czech history, and the three women were convicted. The story later inspired the horror film The Orphan, although the plot was adapted. Klara, Katerina, and Barbara were people with twisted minds who, influenced by a dangerous cult, committed unimaginable acts of cruelty and cannibalism.